Welcome. Welcome. Today, Lauren, Christine, and I are going to be talking about sun transits 62 and 56. So we're going to be exploring around, seeing what we can learn and what we can play with over the next two periods of 11 and a half days. And just to mention sort of upfront and with this recording is that we're recording this a little earlier than we normally do relative to when the transits are beginning, mostly because I'm going away and I, played around with the schedule here. So we weren't not going to talk at all about sort of what's happening in the transit right now because it's not happening yet. So now that I've confused everybody, what about transit 62?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we're not going to do the recap for gate 53 because we aren't even in gate 53 yet. So we can't recap it for you. But gate 62 is coming up. It'll be mid-July. It's July 13th to the 18th. And in human design, it is the gate of details. It is it's a throat gate, right back up. We've been in these kind of fueled root gate energies, this 39 and 53 that we just have come through. We're now moving back up. We're using that fuel that we've been having for the last couple of weeks to actually manifest, right? Our throat gate is this area where all of our energy comes through in some form or fashion. And so 62 is very much in the I Ching, it's called the preponderance of the small, right? Which I love. Some of these I Ching names are quite poetic. And it's an energy for focusing on details, tiny details, paying attention. So people who have this energy in their system, lit up inside of them in their design, very often are very detail oriented people. They can see things from a logical perspective that other people might miss. They are often very inclined to put things in order. So that's something I think about in this energy. There may be some real push for us to like order our world or change up some ordering that's been going on in our life. Um, and there's precision, right? Like that's actually the gift in the gene key, right? This idea of precision and being precise is something that I think is going to be really important for us. Especially, it makes me think of the four agreements, right? Being impeccable with your word, right? And this being a throat gate, this piece of precision, like being very clear um, in our communications with people. It may be really an awesome time to um, have maybe harder conversations that we've been avoiding, or we may have access to more understanding of what it is we really want and how we really want to manifest in the world, and can have that conversation really well in this time frame.
The when you mentioned the understanding, when you're looking at the gene keys, there's he makes a big distinction between intellect and intelligence.
Mm.
And I was thinking that in a lot of the work I've looked at is like you have like raw data, which can then be changed into information, which then grows into knowledge, which then can become wisdom. And yet we're in a place where data is almost like it's ruling everything. It's like treasure in our world. And so that need to develop those stronger capacities. And then he also talks about perceiving intellect as being the more masculine, the more mind based, and the intelligence being the more feminine, the more heart based. And it made me think of something that we use in spiritual intelligence coaching, and it's a Buddhist saying, and it's the saying is that love is a bird with two wings. If either wing is broken, the bird cannot fly. And we've attributed the wings to wisdom and compassion. So that need to have both the intellect and the intelligence, the masculine and the feminine, for things to really happen.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm loving this and just enjoying the ride that both of you are taking us on as you look at this and then thinking about how to weave in what I learned from Hilary Barrett's translation of the I Ching. And the question she always puts out at the beginning of her writings is I find telling to the whole theme. And the question she puts forth this time is, what small things can you do to meet a need? And so one of the things that comes to mind, because I am not a detail person, I wish I had this gate. Um, I'm the one that always overlooks the details because I'm always flying too high. And luckily, I make friends with people that are detailed people, and I can bring them in and they help catch me and call me on that. Um, but I'm thinking of the hexagram 62 and this idea of maybe not flying so high during this time, to come closer to the ground and do this thing that um, my detail minded husband has taught me, is to work in incremental steps. And I love that word, incremental. And I think about that often. And when I'm creating, what is the small thing, the next small thing I can do? Um, and, right now everything feels so big that we're up against, and we know there's all this change coming. And we think, oh, there's just me. And how do we cope? And then we can get ourselves in this hopeless loop. I have a feeling that this gate can be really powerful for us, to settle in and go, oh, what if I just did this one thing and I could make a difference?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It makes me think of something I say to my kids a lot, which is how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Mm.
Right? And there is this idea that it is the small things, right? Everything in our life is essentially just a collection of small things, right? So if you do the small things poorly or not to detail or whatever, right? There is very high likelihood that the bigger things also reflect that, right? And so this is a great time, I think, to really look at the small things, right? And value the small things. We don't, as a culture, value the small things, right? We tend to be a very big things culture, right? And I look at other cultures who I feel do really pay attention to the small, the preponderance of the small, right? The details. I love Japanese craftsmen, right? I love that aesthetic. I love how they do pay attention to small things. I love the precision, right, in their work. And I think of that, that subculture within the Japanese culture of like very much this gate energy, like paying attention to the tiniest details in order to make the final product amazing.
And when in that example, like with Japanese artistry, is like there's flow in that work. The attention to detail is part of the process, and they're moving through it. There's kind of in the shadow aspect of this, people can also get trapped in the details, get like caught up and get stopped by them. And I'm thinking about people that I have coached. There was one that came up in particular that got caught on words, the meaning of the word, and like could not get past and think about anything else because their, you know, translation of that word was, it was a negative thing for them and they couldn't see anything else. And we couldn't insert a different word in there either. And another person that I was coaching that was under a certain amount of pressure in a group, and then I got to coach her in that group. And I watched her as she sort of folded in, is that all of a sudden she got really, really focused, like obsessively focused on this sheet of paper with numbers on it. At which point I was like, what's happening for you right now? And she was like that was her way of checking out, was to
Mm,
go into these details. Um,
interesting.
so she was down in those details. And I guess that's the down in the weeds thing, right? And she needed help getting out. So,
Well, that's a little bit, don't you think, what Richard Rudd was alluding to in the shadow of intellect, the facts, and getting tied up in that. As I was listening to you, Lois, and I was thinking about, how do we find that harmony, right? And that balance between seeing enough of the details yet still moving. And that's the flow. And so this is where the Gemmo comes in to help us find that spot. And the extract Ginkgo comes to mind for me here. And it's interesting. This just came in like immediately as I was reading the I Ching translation. And Ginkgo, first of all, on a physical level, helps with our eyesight and helps us see things more clearly. And on an emotional level, it helps us see what we wouldn't ordinarily see. So it might even be helpful in helping us see our own shadow. Even this is just occurring to me as I'm saying that, but it sharpens and allows us to see detail. It also sharpens the central nervous system. It's a tonic for the central nervous system, keeping us alert but calm. So that's it. That's the place, right? We want to be in that middle ground of seeing the details, but still moving. So that might be an extract to consider this coming 5 days through the 18th of July.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that all of everything that's coming up makes me really think about a creative practice, right? Like I was talking about Japanese craftsmen, right? Like this is a gate that is attached to our ajna, right? The channel is a mind to throat gate, and it wants very much to be intellectual, and it can get caught in the intellectualness of it. Lois, you talked about naming, which is really interesting. This particular gate is heavily associated with naming and nomenclature, right? People that have this energy are very often very good at putting names to things, right? Ordering things, in that way. But again, this is not, as we learn in human design, this is not where we want to be. Our mind is not our authority, right? Our body is our authority. And so this thing about using our hands, especially maybe during this time where we might be in this intellectual space, is really helpful and connective to us to really understand, like, yes, I mean, to be in flow, we know this, right? Like you can only be in flow in some ways when you're fully engaged, embodied, right? And so having a practice where you can get some embodiment always is a good thing, but it might be especially a good thing in this time frame.
that and touching into your heart, like the reason that you're doing this thing. It's like if you're just sitting there just doing it because like it's, creating widgets, it's hard to put your heart into it. But if you can think to like who's going to use it, who's going to benefit from it, and you so start bringing that online too, that changes the tenor of what's going on for you. And then you're more likely to go into flow.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, and that whole thing that we're talking about actually flows really naturally into gate 56, which is again, it's the gate of what they call stimulation, right? And I always think of gate 56 as the storyteller, right? And so this is the thing that we're doing when we're in connection and we're embodied. We're taking our experiences, right? And we have this energy to manifest something that is of value to others, right? That's what our mind energy is for, as a gift to others. And so in gate 56, when we're, between the 19th and the 24th of this month, we're also again in another throat gate, right? We have more of this manifestation potential, but this time through the wisdom of story, through experience, right? This is a very experiential energy. And Lauren does have this one, right? So she loves to be able to talk about, right, the experiences that she's had. And we know this if you follow her work at all, that's a gift of hers, right? But we'll all have this gift in 56. And in the I Ching, it's called the Wanderer, which also makes me wonder, especially this time of year in the summer, if there may be more opportunity for people to truly just be having new experiences, maybe through actual wandering, right? Allowing yourself, giving yourself some time to break from your normal pattern, break from the responsibility of the what is currently a really heavy world, and just get back in touch with yourself, what lights you up, what you see of importance and value in the world, and just really tap back into that, because that's the energy that we're gonna need moving forward, right? What is your strength? What is your gift? What is your love and passion that you want to bring forth?
I have this gate as well. It's actually my life purpose gate in Gene Keys. But the I was thinking, I looked at Brina Magnuson's work again. This one is the opossum,
Mm.
and like with that wanderer in the I Ching is the need to be cautious as you're wandering to make sure that you're meeting the right people and sort of creating safety for yourself and an opening. And but the other thing about the opossum is it plays dead. And I was thinking about this experience that I had. It was my son's was his graduation from his master's degree, and we were staying in this hotel, which is it had just beautiful breakfast and stuff. But the morning of the graduation, it was a buffet, and I get totally overstimulated, the shadow stimulation when this happens. And there was a point, and I heard my son's voice say to my husband, "I think you're going to need to move her." I just stopped dead. And that's what I was really thinking about with this case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not at home, and which is exactly how Hilary Barrett explains it, is traveling and recognizing the whole time you're not at home, things are different. Take note of how you're behaving. And as I was listening to you both, I was thinking about this. We can wander in so many ways, can't we? We can wander in our thoughts. We can wander around ideas and wander at the same time. We can astral wander. That's happens to be one of my favorite things to do. And um, the idea, though, I think that this gate and this energy from this period wants from us is to help us stay true to ourselves despite how the external circumstances change. And that's a really interesting practice, is putting ourselves in places like the buffet or in a foreign country or in a group of people you would not ordinarily go join, and say, how can I be in this and still be true to myself?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in the gene key, the shadow is distraction and the gift is enrichment, right? And so as we're wandering around, as you say, as you're saying, like that's the discernment piece, right? Like, is this just a distraction, or is this something that's really filling me up and enriching my worldview and enriching where what I think of things, how I think of things? And again, we're constantly like this is constantly around us because of our screens, right? There's no better example of the dichotomy between distraction and enrichment. I mean, there are enriching things on the screens. I've gotten many interesting and wonderful bits of wisdom from somebody on a screen, but it is a very small percentage compared to this sheer distraction, right? And so I do think this gate 56 is going to be a great time to support that, like putting the screens down again, getting back in your real environment, right? The real and the unreal is it's a very difficult thing for us to discern right now. And so there's something about this wanting new experiences in the energy of gate 5056 that I really hope encourages people to get back out in the real world for real lengths of time, right?
Yeah.
You also made a reference to being filled up, Christine, and it made me think about in the hexagram in Chinese, referring to like this with the senses being the five thieves, your five senses being five thieves, and how any one of the senses can type almost become an addiction for any of us. And so it's like if you like love chocolate, right? Like, so how much is actually necessary for you to actually savor and get full enjoyment out, fulfillment out of? Which, like, is it a square, right? Or do you did for some reason you need to fill up on the whole bar? Um, so that you're trying almost like you're trying to fill something else now. Um, and so sort of looking at is it are you doing is it enough? Are you doing it to fulfill yourself? Or are you doing it to run away from what you're feeling? So that being able to discern in there.
Yeah.
Are you
Well, I mean, the gene.
distracted? Oops, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Well, no, I was just going to say the gene key, the city is intoxication, right? And when Richard talks about intoxication, he has, I think, a very different take on it than what we think of as intoxication, right? But we are seeking intoxication generally in this world, right? Because we don't really understand at that physical level what the intoxication that he's talking about, right? The intoxication with life, right? The intoxication with the awe and the wonder and the beauty of what this world offers us. But the best we can do is use a substance to get momentarily, away from the the drudgery of the life. But we're not really achieving intoxication, right? But I do think there's a pursuit of it through these substances.
Mhm.
So yeah, he talks about like homeopathic dosing, like when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to things like wine and that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So not abstaining, but not overindulging. The but then it also brings us like to practices around. Then there's about a practice about the appreciation of what is, like having gratitude for the things that are beautiful, the things that we appreciate in the world, and maybe even looking a little deeper and finding appreciation. Because like somebody will think that one landscape's beautiful and another one's ugly, but what they might think is ugly, somewhere in there, there's something beautiful. So
Mm-hmm.
be grateful for that.
So I do have a Gemmo for us.
Cool.
And I chose this one because I feel like for myself, having this gate focus is important during this time. And that's what keeps me from being distracted is remaining focused on why I'm here, what I'm doing. Is this serving or is it adding to or is it taking away? And so when I think about that, I think about black currant, and one of the key phrases we use for black currant when it's used in a microdose for the nervous system is it helps keep your compass pointed north. And that's really what we're talking about here. We're going to explore things. We're going to look at new ideas. We're going to meet new people. We're going to go new places. But we stay pointing to our north, whatever our north is throughout this time period.
Yeah. 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 I think about that and what Lois was talking about with the gratitude practice. And I think, again, the gate 56 is the storyteller gate, right? It is a real opportunity for us all to maybe actually write down the things that we're grateful for, right? Maybe actually write down the things that we want to focus on, right? Like we can be less intentional about those things than we might ought to be. And I think that this energy would be an excellent time to really dig into that and tell stories about your experiences, right? And tell yourself what it is you're grateful for, and tell yourself what it is that you really want to focus on in the coming, weeks and months, so that you have that to refer back to.
Yeah, I just thought a great prompt, because I like to write, would be, where have you wandered? And
Mm.
write stories that way, and or where would you like to wander? And because both are equally important, but I could imagine just writing for hours on where have you wandered?
I love that.
And yeah, and then even like looking at the impact that that wandering has, is like, so what do you learn about yourself while you're wandering? Because whether your experience is good one or a not so good one, you're going to learn something.
Yeah.
There's going to
Yeah.
be a takeaway. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing for me in this, the keynote sentence in human design for Gate 56, is part of the keynote sentence is stability through movement, right? And I think that that's a lot of what we've been talking about, right? Like we think about that we are moving, right? We assume and we look like we're solid, but we're not, right? At the quantum level, everything inside of us is moving, is vibrating, right? And but yet we look like a stable human, right? And so I just think it's really interesting in this time to like remember this thing about movement, right? That it's constant for us. It's never ending. We're on a planet that's traveling 175,000 miles an hour or something, right? We're always moving. And I think we just have a culture that can keep us very in a stasis mode and tell us that that's the safe place. But I don't know if that's true. So I think this might be a great time to, dig in and really investigate that.
well, it feels like we completed again. So,
We hit that wall again.
so thank you for being with us, and we hope we'll see you next time.